Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In the opulent halls of Forrester Creations, where sketches fluttered like whispers of ambition and the air hummed with the tension of family legacies clashing with personal dreams, Eric Forrester stood as the unwavering patriarch, his presence a reminder of decades spent weaving an empire from threads and vision. The corporation had withstood storms in the past, rivalries, betrayals, heartbreaks, but nothing quite like the rising tempest over the Logan name and the shifting loyalties that threatened to rip the family apart. Rich Forrester, his son and co-CEO, had always been the bridge between tradition and innovation, but his recent moves reflected his protective instincts toward Brooke and the Forrester brand. Katie Logan, feisty and resilient, had long been a member of that environment, her efforts in public relations vital. Nonetheless, she suddenly found herself on the periphery, her ideas disregarded, her function diminished in favor of external corporations. Katie, fueled by her renewed bond with Bill Spencer and his grand gesture of backing her own fashion house, secured the trademark for Logan. It was a daring move, one that symbolized her desire to emerge from the shadows of her sister Brooke's enduring romance with Ridge and claim her own space in the industry she loved. Brooke, the embodiment of Forrester's glamour, saw it as a personal affront. The Logan brand was inextricably linked to her own history at the company, with her triumphs and scandals woven into the couture lines. Ridge, as loyal to Brooke as ever, totally supported her, seeing Katie's venture as a potential threat, a dilution of the legacy they so carefully guarded. Whispers in the executive offices escalated into angry conversations, with Carter Walton stuck in the midst, delivering legal advice that further fueled the flames. Eric, who had recently weathered his own forced retirement, a decision pushed by Ridge out of concern for his health but perceived as a dismissal, watched these developments with rising uneasiness. He had dedicated his life to Forrester Creations, designing masterpieces that define generations, only to be gently pushed away. The parallels were impossible to miss. Just as Ridge had underestimated his father's enduring passion and vitality, Ridge and Brooke were now dismissing Katie's abilities, trash-talking her ambitions behind closed doors, insisting she couldn't compete or had no right to the family name for her label. Donna Logan, Eric's faithful girlfriend, confided in him about the nasty remarks she'd overheard, divided between her sisters and the guy she adored. Eric's heart went out to Katie. He had always viewed the Logan sisters as extended family, valuing Katie's quiet fortitude and constant support during his own hardships. As the new year began, with holiday lights still glimmering dimly in the Forrester estate, Eric realized the full scope of the schism. Katie had hired Deke, a promising young designer who had recently been fired from Forrester due to internal politics, and offered him a fresh start at her upcoming house. Hope Logan voiced quiet acceptance, happy to see Deke succeed elsewhere, but Brooke was outraged, seeing it as snatching talent. Rumors circulated that Eric had been seen discussing sketches with Deke, a subtle collaboration that suggested a deeper engagement. Eric's pencil had never actually stopped moving. Retirement had just limited his creativity to the solitude of his house, where frustration boiled. The confrontation exploded on a bright January afternoon in the main design studio, with sunlight streaming through the windows onto bolts of expensive fabric. Ridge was studying the current collection with Steffi and Carter when Eric walked in unexpectedly, his stride purposeful, his countenance a blend of resolve and paternal authority. Katie had confided in him earlier over tea at the mansion, her voice firm but her eyes filled with pain as she recounted Brooke's ultimatum and Ridge's dismissive attitude. "They act like I'm some amateur playing dress-up," she'd said, "like the Logan name belongs only to Brooke because of her history with you and the company." Eric had listened, reassuringly patting her hand, memories flooding back of Katie's loyalty during his health scares, her genuine affection that felt like that of a daughter. Eric did not mince words in front of his son. The room grew silent as he shut the door behind him, the sound reverberating like a gavel. "Ridge, we need to talk," he said calmly but firmly. Ridge looked up, surprise flashing across his face before settling into defensive mode. Dad, if this is about retirement again, it's not just about that, Eric said, going closer to the desk covered in patterns and swatches. Though the way you push me aside, it stings, son. But this is about Katie. About how you and Brooke are treating her. Steffi shifted uncomfortably, sensing the shift in dynamics, while Carter averted his gaze, knowing the legal labyrinth he'd helped navigate. Ridge leaned back, arms crossed. Katie's making a mistake with this new line. Using Logan. It's tied to Forrester, to Brooke's legacy here. We're just protecting the brand. Eric's brows sharpened, his decades of experience sharpening his reaction. Protecting the brand? Or protecting your egos? Katie has given everything to this company, her ideas, her crisis management, her heart. And now, because she's daring to build something of her own, you belittle her? Call her venture insignificant. Say she can't compete. He hesitated, letting the sentences linger. I heard what you said, Ridge. Through Donna. Through the grapevine that never sleeps in this family. You and Brooke, mocking her ambitions. It's the same insensitivity you showed me when you decided I was too old to contribute. Ridge sat there, his anger growing. Dad, that's not fair. We were concerned about your health. And with Katie, Brooke feels betrayed. The name belongs to all the Logans, Eric interrupted firmly, his voice raising just enough to command attention. Katie has every right to it. She's earned her place in this industry, just as Brooke has, but unlike some, she's not content to live in someone else's shadow forever. He recalled his own sketches, buried away, the fire still burning to create. Rumors about his secret meetings with Deke were not unfounded. He liked the young man's potential and saw Katie's endeavor as an opportunity to express his passion without the limits Ridge had placed. Steffi said softly, Granddad, we're just trying to keep Forrester strong. Yet Eric looked to her, his gaze softening yet firm. Strength comes from supporting family, not undermining them. Katie is family. She's been there for all of us, through scandals, through losses. And now, when she needs support, you turn your backs. He stared at Ridge in confusion. I won't stand for it. Not after what I've been through. If Katie's house needs a lead designer, someone with experience, vision, someone who's been sidelined unjustly, then perhaps it's time I lend my name to something new. The atmosphere tightened as the implications became clear. Ridge's face turned pale. You're not serious. Dad, Forrester is your legacy. Eric grinned softly, with a hint of defiance in his eyes. My legacy is creation, son. Not sitting idle while others dictate my worth.
Katie understands that.
She respects the fire that doesn't dim with age or setbacks. He moved toward the door, pausing to add, think about that, Ridge. Before you push away the people who truly matter. As Eric left, the office buzzed with unspoken repercussions. Word immediately traveled through the hallways that Eric Forrester, the legend himself, was publicly standing up for Katie, defending her freedom to choose her own path and hinting at a defection that may shock Forrester to his core. Katie, hearing about it later from Donna, felt a rush of gratitude and validation, tears welling up as she understood the patriarch recognized her promise where others saw a danger. Bill, ever the protector, grinned vehemently, viewing it as ammunition in his feud with Ridge. Brooke was divided, wrestling with guilt, her relationship with Eric tugging at her allegiance to Ridge. Eric's confrontation had a far-reaching impact in the days after. He met openly with Katie and Deke, exchanging sketches that inspired ideas for her debut collection, which was elegant, timeless, and infused with the Forrester touch while remaining assertive in its individuality. Ridge exploded, addressing his father in private and appealing for understanding, but Eric refused to give in. You taught me a lesson, Ridge, albeit unintentionally. Passion never dies, and neither does loyalty to those who deserve it. At a family party in the mansion, Eric publicly hailed Katie's enterprise, his words a clear endorsement that left Ridge and Brooke exchanging anxious glances. The aftermath widened the schism. Hope discreetly urged Katie on, recognizing parallels to her own challenges. Steffi was concerned about the company's future, and Carter negotiated the legal quagmire with increasing trepidation. Eric's defense was more than just words. His engagement gave Katie's house credibility, attracting purchasers and reporters alike. Whispers of a new rivalry resembled the old Forrester versus Spectre days, and Spencer's support fueled the flames. Despite the strain, periods of reflection emerged. Eric and Katie had quiet chats about resilience and proving critics wrong without resentment. "You've always been like a father to me," Katie confided one evening. "Standing up for me now, it means everything." Eric chuckled warmly. "Family defends family, Katie, even when bloodlines blur." Ridge, watching from afar, struggled with regret. His link with his father stretched but not shattered, prompting him to rethink his protectiveness. The industry kept a close eye on the collections as they developed, Forrester's polished elegance versus Logan's youthful empowerment. Eric's public support for Katie not only preserved her goal, but also rekindled his own, demonstrating that legends do not die, they develop. In the realm of high fashion and higher emotions, alliances shifted, hearts mended and broke, but one reality remained constant. Underestimating a Logan, or a Forrester patriarch, was a mistake few could recover from. The drama was constant, with business disputes spilling into personal lives. Bill poured his support behind Katie, arranging expensive gatherings to display early designs, while Ridge and Brooke focused on Forrester's campaigns, subtly undermining the upstart. Deke blossomed under Eric's tutelage, with his creative elements complementing the master's classics. Hope paid a visit to Katie's new studios, offering support and hinting at potential collaborations. Donna mediated whenever she could, her love for Eric holding her together in the midst of sisterly discord. Eric's showdown became famous in family mythology as the patriarch reminded everyone that devotion is not selective. He attended Katie's first preview, beaming brightly as models paraded in dresses adorned with his subtle touch, his presence a public retort to Ridge's reservations. Ridge also attended, moved by complex feelings, applauding politely, but inside churning. Brooke softened slightly as she saw Eric's joy, whispering to Katie afterwards, "He's happy creating again." "Thank you for that." Reconciliation teased at the edges, but competitiveness hardened. Sales figures increased for both houses as the competition energized the market. Eric, revitalized, sketched late into the night, his defense of Katie turning into a collaboration that renewed his reputation. Katie flourished, her confidence shining through, proving her critics wrong one magnificent design at a time. In the end, Eric's brave stand did more than just defend Katie. It redefined boundaries, forcing growth in the midst of glitz and glitter. Forrester persevered, Logan rose, and the family, shattered but fierce, navigated the lines of love, ambition, and forgiveness that bind them forever. The brave and magnificent world whirled on, richer for the conflict, stronger for the defense that reverberated through its halls. Eric Forrester stood in the center of the Forrester Creations office, commanding the space in a way that only decades of authority, legacy, and earned respect could do. The anxiety was palpable, making even experienced executives hesitate in their actions. Ridge Forrester did not expect this. Nobody had. Eric, the patriarch who had so frequently preferred quiet disappointment or private counsel to public confrontation, was about to draw a line in the sand, all for Katie Logan. Something catastrophic was happening in the building, and word had spread. Assistants waited at doorways under the pretext of work, designers slowed their pace, and even long-time employees exchanged anxious glances. Ridge stood near his desk, arms crossed, his mouth set in a familiar expression of defiance and displeasure. He had been through innumerable confrontations in his life, romantic, professional, and familial, but this one felt unique. This was not a business choice or a design dispute. This was about morals, loyalty, and the repercussions of thoughtless behavior. Eric didn't spend any time. His voice, while calm, conveyed evident authority. He said Ridge's name not as a co-worker, but as a parent who was extremely disappointed in his son. Ridge bristled quickly, ready to defend himself, but Eric raised a hand, halting him before he could make a single justification. That gesture alone quieted the room. Eric made it apparent that he was well aware of Ridge's recent actions with Katie, in which she had been dismissed, underestimated, and emotionally harmed. He spoke to Katie not only as Ridge's former girlfriend or the mother of his kid, but as a lady who had demonstrated steadfast allegiance to the Forrester family, often at tremendous personal cost. Eric reminded Ridge that Katie had remained with his family through scandals, betrayals, and upheavals that would have pushed most people away. Ridge tried to excuse himself, claiming that his sentiments were complicated, that circumstances had changed, and that he had never meant to hurt Katie. His remarks fell flat in the face of Eric's unflinching gaze. Eric confronted him directly, asking when intent became more important than impact. He pointed out that Ridge's pattern of uncertainty and emotional recklessness had created a path of broken hearts, and Katie was merely the most recent victim. As Eric spoke, memories seemed to flood the room, years of family history woven into each statement. He mentioned Ridge's previous relationships not to condemn him, but to demonstrate a pattern that Eric could no longer ignore. He mentioned Brooke, Taylor, and now Katie, all women who had given Ridge their trust only to be left questioning their worth. Eric said that he had previously justified this behavior as passion or confusion, but seeing Katie suffer had pushed him to reconsider. Katie, Eric explained, was not someone who enjoyed games or thrived on turmoil. She loved deeply, trusted completely, and believed in the promises given to her. Ridge broke more than just a relationship when he distanced himself, wavered, and misdirected his affections without honesty or respect. He eroded her sense of safety and dignity. Ridge's irritation escalated. He accused Eric of taking sides and failing to understand the complexities of his feelings. Eric argued that understanding emotions does not excuse dangerous behavior. He reminded Ridge that being a Forrester entailed more than just brilliance and accomplishment. It also required ethics. Eric stressed that Ridge's handling of matters with Katie lacked ethics. The confrontation became more personal when Eric mentioned Will. He asked Ridge what type of example he thought he was creating for his son. Did Ridge want Will to grow up feeling that women were disposable, obligations were negotiable, and accountability was optional? The inquiry hit a nerve. Ridge's expression cracked briefly, betraying the internal strife he worked so hard to disguise. Eric went on to suggest that Katie deserved more than apologies and tepid explanations. She deserved respect, clarity, and honesty. If Ridge no longer loved her, he should have had the fortitude to admit it rather than keeping her chained by false hope. Eric made it plain that what irritated him the most was not that the relationship had ended, but the reckless, self-centered manner in which it had collapsed. Eric's statements made the room feel smaller. Ridge adjusted his weight, plainly uncomfortable but hesitant to completely submit. He stated that his feelings for Katie were genuine and that he had attempted to make things work. Eric did not deny this. Instead, he urged Ridge to consider why his trying always seemed to come at the expense of another person's emotional well-being. Eric then made a statement that astonished everyone within earshot. He stated that if Ridge could not treat those he claimed to love with respect and decency, Eric would have to re-evaluate Ridge's level of responsibility and influence, both within the family and at Forrester Creations. It was not an angry threat, but rather a calculated caution from a man who had built an empire and refused to let it be tarnished by repeated personal failings. Ridge finally spoke softly, asking Eric if he honestly thought he was incapable of change. Eric responded honestly. He stated he believed change was possible, but only if Ridge stopped diverting blame and began to accept responsibility. He wanted Ridge to communicate with Katie, not to defend himself or alter history, but to listen, to fully hear and acknowledge the suffering he had caused without reservation. As Eric turned to depart, he hesitated to give one final reminder. Katie Logan, he claimed, was a good woman. She was neither weak in her love for Ridge, nor was she foolish in believing in him. Any man who failed to see her worth was at a loss. Eric stepped away, leaving behind a room filled with stillness and a son forced to confront truths he had previously avoided. Katie learned of the confrontation later that day. She was at home, trying to concentrate on work, when she received a phone call that altered the direction of her afternoon. She was startled to learn that Eric had stood up for her. For so long, she felt invisible, as if her pain had been overshadowed by the never-ending turmoil surrounding Ridge's love life. Knowing that someone as regarded as Eric had witnessed her suffering and spoken out on her behalf elicited an unexpected surge of emotion. Katie wasn't sure how to feel at first. Gratitude blended with sadness, relief entwined with unresolved pain. Eric's defense confirmed what she had been trying to persuade herself. Her sentiments were important, she wasn't overreacting, and she deserved better than ambiguity. It did not alleviate the pain, but it did lessen the edges. Meanwhile, Ridge found himself alone with his thoughts. Eric's comments resonated incessantly. For the first time in a long time, he couldn't just ignore criticism or blame the situation. The weight of his father's disappointment pressed hard on him. He relived moments with Katie, recalling her calm smiles, kindness, and readiness to believe in him even when he questioned himself. He began to regard those recollections not as solace, but as reminders of what he had taken for granted. Eric's confrontation had a far-reaching impact that stretched over time. Brooke noticed the change in Ridge almost immediately. He was calmer and more thoughtful. When she inquired what was wrong, he evaded, but the tension remained. Taylor, too, recognized something was wrong, recognizing the telltale signals of Ridge at a moral crossroads. Eric remained solid in his position. When questioned by others, he refused to back down or moderate his stance. He emphasized that his worry was not about taking sides in a sexual conflict, but about holding his family to a higher standard. He would not allow history repeat itself unchallenged. Katie finally connected with Eric at Forrester Creations. Their conversation was quick yet significant. Eric did not give a huge statement or seek praise. He just told her that she was important and deserved honesty and respect. Katie thanked him, her voice firm but her eyes full of emotion. She felt seen in a manner she hadn't experienced in a long time. The confrontation constituted a watershed moment not only for Ridge, but for the entire family dynamic. It prompted difficult debates and called into question long-standing behavioral norms. It was unclear whether Ridge would truly change, but one thing was certain. Eric Forrester had set a boundary, and Katie Logan was no longer alone on the other side.